Hi everyone, welcome to video 60. In this video what I intend to show you is some of the new features that have come along with XWays Forensics with regards to how you can export various files using some of the new file types, i.e. PDF and text files. These were both new features that I and my friends have wanted for quite a number of years, particularly with regard to PDF, but more recently with text files. So that's going to be the first part of the demonstration, and then the second part is going to be with regards to the API improvements or additions that have been made specifically with regards to one particular function, which gives you as a developer of extensions a great deal of flexibility. So yeah, they're really useful features. So the first thing I'm going to show, so I'm running, this is version 20 of XWays Forensics, which is not out just now, but it will be in a matter of days, I suspect, because this is one of the last betas, I think. So I've got the usual XWays Forensics training image that a lot of you will have used if you've been on the training. And in this particular example, I just want to show you how easy it is to create PDF versions of I think pretty much any file object that you've got in your case. I might caveat that by saying any supported file, but I think it's fairly accurate to say almost every file that you'll need to send on as a PDF, you can do it using XWays Forensics 19.9 and upwards. So right click a file, choose recover copy, choose where you want to send it, and those of you that are using an older version of XWays might not have these options, but as of version 19.9 and 20.0, these will be in here, at least the top one, and with 20, this one down here. So if you just tick convert to PDF, obviously with your location, and click OK, it will go ahead and just send that to your output location as a PDF file. So here's the output. It names it based on the original file name, and it just adds PDF at the end. And then when you open that with your PDF viewer, you'll be able to see it as a PDF. And that's the same is true for email messages and all sorts of things. In addition to that, what you can do with the new version of XWays Forensics is you can also choose to output a file as text. Now this is particularly useful for those of you, I suspect, across the world who are involved in things like banking and big data and all this kind of stuff, where you need to chuck a load of information perhaps into other systems. And so this is really useful for that, because you can choose your evidence that's been found using the forensic tool, i.e. XWays Forensics, and you can move it on elsewhere in a form that might be more easily digestible for those other tools. So by ticking that and clicking OK, I should now get a text version of the user's view of effectively a compressed file, like a docx file. Same is true for XLSX files and many others besides, because those of you that will know about certain file types, you'll know that if you just try and access a file on disk, it can sometimes be stored in a different way to how you're shown it as a user. So this is really a brilliant new feature that the guys at XWays Forensics have added. So here, if I now open that with a text editor, you'll see I get exactly the same information, but just the text portion of it without all the formatting and stuff. So that's the kind of the more straightforward part dealt with for a lot of users who will hopefully benefit from that. So the next part of the demonstration that I want to show you is how you might, as a developer of an extension, want to implement these features as part of an automation task, for example. Now, those of you who follow this platform will know that I did a video all the way back in November last year, November 2019, so this was pre-coronavirus. So that's how long it's taken me to get around to doing this one, I'm sad to say, but it's not without good intention. It's just that I just haven't had the chance for one reason or another. So anyone who's new to extensions or wants to learn the basics of writing a basic extension I suggest you go and read video 59 along with the narrative that accompanies it on xwaysclips.co.uk, and then come back to this perhaps. But if you're fully familiar with all of that kind of thing, then just crack on with this. So what I've done is I've prepared a very basic extension which includes the basic core functions that an extension needs. So XTinit is an essential, XTprepare, XTprocessItem, and XFinalize, done and about are, I don't think, absolutely core, but it's best to have them in there. So I'm not going to go through this entire thing line by line because that will take too long and defeats the objects of what I'm trying to show you. But I'll just very quickly skim over. So you have your, at the top, your traditional kind of compiler directives, and then the libraries that you might need to use, equivalent to your import section in a C++ program, some global variables, and then I've got the first of the function, and this is the one that XWays Forensics will ask for first from your extension. So XTinit, obviously for initialize, and in my example, you have to return a result from the function, but in my example I'm asking it to do some version checking before it goes on, because I want it to do different things depending on the version. I've then got a small about window which just gives you a little dialogue which you can see, or the user can see, when they click the little ellipsis when they're choosing an extension. Then comes XTprepare, which is where I basically say that I want this extension, I as the developer want this extension to be run by the user by selecting one or more files, right clicking them and choosing run extension from that particular window that pops up. And if the user doesn't do that, they get a message saying that's how you've got to run it. And so then comes XTProcessItem, which is, in this particular case, called for every item that the user has selected. So if they've selected 3 or 4, it will be called 3 or 4 times individually for each item that's chosen by the user. So we've got a few variables at the top there. And then what I've got here is a copy and paste from the guys at XWays Software AG, from their API page, which you can access publicly. It's worth pointing out at this particular moment that all of this stuff I'm showing you and on all of the videos that I do, it's all kind of public domain stuff. It's all stuff that you can read about in the user manual or on their website. It's nothing particularly special in that regard. And you can even read it all without even buying the software. You can download the user manual without buying the software. So with that disclaimer out of the way, this bit of information here is specifically from the API documentation for the function XWFOpenItem. Now this is perhaps, in my opinion, one of the most important functions of the API if you want to do stuff with files in a forensic image. What it enables you to do is get a handle to any given file and do something with it. So you might want to read it, you might want to explore it, you might want to navigate to a certain offset within it. However you do it, you need to call this first, and you basically will say obviously XWF meaning XWays Forensics OpenItem, and it's the item ID that XWays Forensics is currently looking at. So it might be the first one or whatever order it's in, from the current volume that's been selected, and then you get these flags, and it's these flags that I want to talk about specifically because they relate to these values up here. Now, up until very recently, there was only 2 or 3 of these flags, and I'm sure it wasn't just me, but I, for one, was asking Stefan if he would be so kind as to add the option of enabling us to get a handle to a text-based version of the file, which he's very kindly implemented in version 20.0, and in previous times the PDF handle was also useful. So what this means is that for any item you can ask XWays Forensics not to give you necessarily the native file as it's stored on disk, but an interpreted version of it, i.e. a PDF or a text file, or any one of these other options by simply passing the hexadecimal notation flag, or you can convert it to decimal and pass that if you want. So what I've done here very basically is now this is not how you would do it in production. I'm not suggesting anyone follows this blindly. I'm just pointing out for the purposes of a demonstration so that I haven't got to change a load of values and to keep it nice and simple. What I've got here are 3 Boolean values, which can obviously either be true or false, and depending on what these values are, will dictate what handle XWays Forensics gives me. So in this case, if I ask it to use the native format, it will use this one over here, which is 0, 1, because it will make an evaluation here to say if native name is true, then get the handle to the file using this flag. If I then change that to false and change use PDF name to true, then this one will evaluate to true, and it will give me a handle to the PDF. And then this last one, use text name, is if I set that to true, when this one executes, it will give me the text-based handle to the file, which, as you can see up here, 0400 extrain plain text on the fly as UTF-8. He's also recently added this one, which is UTF-16, which is what most of Windows uses as well. So then what it does after it's got the handle is it then does a check to say if the handle is valid, because if XWFOpenItem returns a successful handle, it will be greater than 0. So if the handle is valid, then get the item name of the particular item, and if it's the native file, just use the native file name. If it's the PDF flag, add a PDF to the end of the file name, and if it's the text flag, add txt to the end of the native file name. Then what it does in my little program here is it creates a file stream, and I've just hard-coded this path in here just for the purposes of demonstration, but obviously in development you would use some kind of environment variable to get a place to export the files to, or you might want to enable some input from the user via a text file or something to give them the freedom to specify a location of their choosing. What it then will do is it will create a file stream. File streams are obviously useful because you don't know how big a file could be. It could be many gigabytes in size potentially. It creates a file stream in the same name as the file, and it basically puts it in the output folder specified and forcibly creates it. And it will throw an error message if the error message is wrong by basically putting some data in this buffer, which is a wide car array. And that enables it to play nicely with the XWays Forensics output message box, which enables you to output the content of an array into the text window. What it will then do if it manages to create the file stream okay, is it then says, okay, how big is the item that I'm looking at? Give me the size of it, please, XWays Forensics, and it sticks that in item size. What my program then does is it sets the length, i.e. reserves an amount of memory for that particular file object, so it makes a buffer in memory that's of the same size. It then goes ahead and reads the content of the file and puts it in that buffer, ensuring that the same amount of information that's in the file, i.e. the file size, is put into that input buffer. If that completes successfully, so these again are XWays Forensics functions, XWFRead and XWFGetSize. They are XWays Forensics functions that are in the API file. If that completes successfully, it obviously allocates the results of that to this variable here, which again needs to be of some size in order to be valid. If it is valid, what it will then do is basically just output the content of that buffer that it's read from the file, and it puts it into the file stream, i.e. writes it to the file stream, and it will use the file name that I've asked it to use up here. So depending on which flag I've passed to OpenItem will dictate what file name gets used, either the native file name or the native file, the name of PDF or text file. And then after that, it will close this particular item. It will return the all-important result value. So XTProcessItem is one of the core XWays functions, and it has to return a result. So it will ensure that the item is closed, which will free up the memory, because let's face it, nobody wants memory leaks. And then after that, after it's done all the items that have been selected by the user, it will call XTFinalize, which basically, in this case, just outputs a little message to the message window and again returns result, which tells XWays Forensics that we're getting to the end and we're about done. And then lastly, it will call XTDone, and that just returns a result of 0, which again tells XWays Forensics to make sure you've freed all your resources, don't go hogging anything. And then right at the bottom here, we've got those exports that are required as part of the creation of a DLL, which those of you that are familiar with programming generally will be aware of. But that basically enables all of these functions are exported for use by XWays Forensics. Okay, so that's the structure. So what I will do now is quickly demonstrate this. So if I just quickly compile this, it should hopefully compile okay. So I've got use native to true and the other two set as false. Now in this case, to save me navigating around, this DLL is in the same place, and XWays Forensics, I've already run it once, so it should remember where that one is. So if I just choose this file here, so this is a docx file, so compressed file on disk essentially. If I right click this and choose run extensions, this is my little DLL. If I click that, it should show me my little demo note that I put in the about thing. If I click OK to that, so it's already done it and it's outputted the message at the end. So if I now go to my output folder, it should be there, which it is. Just let me get rid of these earlier test runs, if I can. Might not let me delete them. It does. Right, let me just do that again so that it doesn't cause any confusion. So run extension, run that, should be finished, should be there, which it is. Okay, so now if I flick the behavior in my programming and recompile, so I'll change this one to false. Oh God. Change this one to true. Leave the bottom one to false. What it should now do when it runs is allow me to get a PDF version of this Word document on the fly. So if I now right click, run extension, choose that, okay, it's now done it. So hopefully there'll now be a PDF, which there is. So it's using the same file name, but it's added PDF at the end, just like we showed in the code. So now if I go back and change that to false and this to true, it should now, once it's been compiled and run, so every time I click compile, it regenerates the DLL, which is stored in the same place. So that's why we're able to do this fairly quickly. So if I now go run extensions, choose that. So now it should hopefully have a txt. So if I run that, it will open in the text file like so. If I run that, it should open PDF like so. And if I open this with, I don't know if I've got LibreOffice on here. Hooray, thank goodness for LibreOffice. It should open the Word document, which it does, with formatting and everything. And if I just do one quick last demonstration, because my computer sounds like it's overheating and about to die. So if I just change that to false again for a minute and change this to true, we'll recompile. It's worth noting, by the way, that with a lot of programming interfaces, this one included, you can actually debug your extension by setting the run parameters. So I can set in here in tools and where is it? I've forgotten now. Is it in the project? I can't remember now, but somewhere in there you can basically say when you run this program, so in this case when we run the extension, oh, it's down here, run parameters, you can specify in there what executable you want to run when you click go. So in this case I just choose the XWays Forensics executable, and then when it gets to the point that I run the extension, it calls back to the IDE, and you can then use debuggers to work out where your problems might be. Anyway, I've digressed. So I've compiled that, I think. So if I now select a few of these, so this is where the kind of automation feature will come in for your users. If I right-click that and choose Run Extensions, I've not actually tested this, but it should, in theory, it should export these files as their native file name and native format, one after the other. Which it has done. So, in fact, just let me run that again, just to be on the safe side. So I'm not. When you're under pressure like this, it's sometimes difficult to work out exactly what's been exported and what hasn't. So if I just do those same few again, if I go run extensions, it should do them all at once, which it has. There you go. So that's basically that. So XWFOpenItem, as of version 20, a whole rack of new features, really useful for anyone who's got some serious stuff to do, and should enable you to do a whole myriad of things that you perhaps couldn't do before. And again, the beauty of extensions is they're compiled languages systems, so you create compiled DLLs, so they run pretty much at the same native speed that XWays Forensics can do it, unless of course you write code that runs really badly, which I have certainly done in the past. But you know, I mean, all forensic tools have got the same kinds of ability to do this kind of thing, but in my view, the extensions are particularly powerful and enable a great kind of progression of your workflow. So okay, that's it. Hope that was useful. Bye bye.